Hello everyone and welcome to the final election prediction from ETN Studios Election Time News. This is a redo with the fixed audio issues that were in the previous video that will be linked in the description below so you can check and make sure that didn't change anything. These will still be the exact same predictions. This is coming out the morning of election night, which is when I was planning to have it out anyways. So do sit back, relax, and watch as America chooses their next president of the United States, as well as important Senate races across the country. So to start things off, we have our first callings of the night that are coming up. We have the first few polls closing in a few states. First, we have a few projections to make here. We can call Indiana for Donald Trump. Indiana, 11 electoral votes for the former president here. Kentucky, 8 electoral votes for Donald Trump here in the state of Kentucky. We can now project, and Vermont will be called for Kamala Harris, 3 electoral votes for the vice president here. Looking at these uncalled races, we cannot call Virginia, South Carolina, or Georgia yet. All of them are going to be holding on for a little while as of right now. And so now we are looking at these Senate races. We can now call a hold in Indiana. Jim Banks as a Republican hold in the state of Indiana, and Vermont, a hold for the incumbent Bernie Sanders, independent that caucus of the Democrats. That is a hold here. Uncalled race update, we have the state of Virginia, which is going to go for uncalled race for incumbent Tim Kaine versus the challenger Hung Kao. That will hold on for a little bit there. So looking at our map now, we can see that there's a few races here that are to hold out for a little longer, and so we're gonna have to wait on a few of those races. However, we do have a projection coming up very soon here. We're probably gonna be able to, and we can now officially make a call here. We are able to make a call in the state of South Carolina on the presidential level. Those 9 electoral votes will go for Donald Trump. We wanted to just make sure the first votes coming in to award those 9 electoral votes for the former president, but now we do feel confident enough to be able to award those, so now his total goes up to 28 electoral votes here on the night. It is 7:10 p.m. We have just made that call there. So we have now been able to make that call. We are now coming up on the 7:30 p.m. poll closing time, and so we are now going to be able to make some new projections now. We have the 5 seconds left until the polls close in North Carolina and Ohio. We have some uncalled races here in Ohio and North Carolina being added here, and we still have Georgia and Virginia outgoing. 62 total electoral votes here that are outgoing as of right now, and so we will wait on those. And now looking at the Senate projections, we have an uncalled race update in the state of Ohio. We cannot call that race yet. That is Sherrod Brown, the incumbent, versus Bernie Moreno, the Republican challenger, attempting to de-seat him. This is probably the best chance that this is probably the most difficult Republican flip opportunity that seems plausible tonight. Is in the state of Ohio. We are most likely expecting that to go to Trump by a few points here tonight. So looking at the map here, you can see that now Ohio joins Virginia as an uncalled race as of right now. 2 uncalled races and 1 win for the Democrats and the Republicans each. And now looking at the presidential map, we are still awaiting results in Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, and Ohio as of right now. We cannot make projections in any of those states, and we will not be able to for quite some time. We're coming up on the 8 o'clock p.m. poll closing time, the largest of the night, and so we are now able to make some projections here coming into this poll closing, large poll closing here. We are now have a few projections to make, starting in the state of Alabama. 9 electoral votes for Donald Trump. No surprise here. There are not a lot of surprises that we have so far. All of these are going to be waiting later. Connecticut, the state of Connecticut, 7 electoral votes for the vice president. Kamala Harris will hold that in her column. Delaware, the president's home state, will go for the vice president. 3 electoral votes added to her tally. Same with Illinois, 19 electoral votes, crucial electoral votes. It lost 1 at the census, as well as the key swing state of Pennsylvania, which we'll get to later. Massachusetts has 11 electoral votes, and they will go for Kamala Harris again this cycle. going to the Democrat again. Same with Maryland, another solid blue state going for the Democrats. On the other side, Donald Trump will carry the state of Missouri. Missouri will go red again. Mississippi will also vote for Donald Trump for the third time. 6 electoral votes for Donald Trump. New Jersey will vote Democrat for the third time against Donald Trump. 14 electoral votes for Kamala Harris. Oklahoma will go for Donald Trump. 7 electoral votes into his column here. Rhode Island, 4 electoral votes for the vice president. Kamala Harris will carry Rhode Island. Tennessee, 11 electoral votes for Donald Trump, another solid Republican state. Washington, D.C., 3 electoral votes for Kamala Harris, another strong 3, the most Democratic region in the entire country. West Virginia, 4 electoral votes, the second most Republican state in the country now. And we have some uncalled races. We have Georgia, North Carolina, Ohio. We have Maine added now. Pennsylvania, Florida, New Hampshire are added to our too early to call races here. And so now we are going to move on to our Senate races. So now moving on, we have some Senate projections to make. We can call Connecticut for the incumbent Chris Murphy. There's a Democratic hold in the state of Connecticut. Moving on, the state of Delaware. Lisa Blunt Rochester will take that open seat. Democratic hold here in the state of Delaware. Again, we have an Indiana Jim Bank that has a that's not supposed to be there. That is again a Republican hold here. Maine will go for independent Angus King. He does caucus with Democrats. He's one of the most popular senators in the entire country. Elizabeth Warren will hold on to her seat for the Democrats in the state of Massachusetts. That is a Democratic hold. Mississippi, the incumbent Roger Wicker will hold on to his seat in the state of Mississippi. Missouri, Josh Hawley, the incumbent, will hold on to his seat there. That's a bit of an early projection, but we feel confident enough to be able to call it there. New Jersey, another bit of an early call here, but we feel confident enough to be able to call it for Andy Cam. That's a Democratic hold there. Rhode Island, for Sheldon Whitehouse, the incumbent, that's another Democratic hold in the state of Rhode Island. Tennessee, the incumbent, Marsha Blackburn, will hold on to her seat there in the state of Tennessee as well. And West Virginia called for Governor Jim Justice. This is the first Republican flip of the night. This is a crucial one, and they absolutely needed this one in order to have control of the Senate. Uncalled races, we have Maryland, Larry Hogan versus Angela Alsobrooks. Florida, incumbent Rick Scott versus Debbie Murkisel Powell. And Pennsylvania, the incumbent Bob Casey versus Dave McCormick. So now looking up at our map, we can see our purple races are the ones that are too early to call as of right now. And of course, the ones that have been called already are going to be set out in there. So now we're a bit confident for this Maryland race is probably going to go blue, but we cannot be 100% sure as of yet. And looking at our presidential map, we have quite a few states that are now coming in as purple. We're especially looking at the key swing state of Pennsylvania, and there are 270 electoral votes that are outstanding right now. And we do have the new news that we do have a projection to make. We can call the state of Maryland that Senate race for Angela Alsobrooks as a Democratic hold. She will defeat the governor, Larry Hogan, in that seat. So now the Democrats have another seat there that is guaranteed for them. There, Angela Alsobrooks taking the seat in the Senate in the state of Maryland. So it is now 36 for the Democrats, 43 for the Republicans. That is going to be a crucial call right there for the Democrats. If they lost that, there really wasn't much hope because she was expected to win by about 8 to 10 points, according to recent polling out of the state. Then we're coming up on the 8:30 p.m. poll closings. We are just having polls close in the state of Arkansas, and we have a projection. The state of Arkansas and its 6 electoral votes will go for Donald Trump, and it has no Senate election this cycle. So we are now going to electoral map, and we have another 6 electoral votes for Donald Trump, 81 to 74 here on our map. So we are now seeing some progression moving on there. We still have those uncalled states as of right now. Ohio, Donald Trump has started to take the lead a bit, has finally taken away at the early vote lead that Kamala Harris had in some of the more urban regions. Virginia, Kamala Harris is about to take the lead. And Florida, Donald Trump has taken a relatively strong lead. We are not ready to call that quite yet, but we probably will very, very soon. However, the 9 p.m. poll closings are about to happen right now. We're about to have closings at 9 p.m. here on the East Coast. So we will have a lot of new races to call at that point. So now we're able to call some of these 2, 1, and we now have the polls closing. We have some projections to make here. Kansas will be called for the President Donald Trump, 6 electoral votes for him out of Kansas. Louisiana, 8 electoral votes for Donald Trump out of the state of Louisiana. New York, there is 28 electoral votes, pivotal state for the Harris campaign, 28. North Dakota will give 3 electoral votes to Donald Trump, and the same for the state of South Dakota, right down to the south of the state of North Dakota. 3 electoral votes each for Donald Trump. Wyoming, 3 electoral votes for Donald Trump as well. Now we have a lot of uncalled states as of right now that are just too close to call. We have Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Nebraska, just waiting on that second congressional district. Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Texas are all outstanding. And now we are going to do a Senate projections. We can call the Senate special election in Nebraska. That will be a hold by the incumbent Pete Ricketts, Republican hold there. New York, Kirsten Gillibrand, the incumbent there, will hold her seat in the state of New York. That is a hold for the Democrats. Kevin Cramer, the incumbent, will hold his seat in the state of North Dakota. Wyoming, the incumbent John Barrasso will hold his seat in the state of Wyoming as well. And now we have some uncalled races we cannot call. Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin, Nebraska statewide, Texas, or New Mexico at this time. And all of those names for who is running are on screen right now, and we will get back over to the map. A very purple map right now, 231 electoral votes up for grabs right now, but we do feel relatively confident in being able to call a race very, very soon. So as soon as our decision desk gives the okay, we will absolutely call that. It's going to be a tight race all the way down for the rest of the night, though, for quite a few of these other races. But, all right, we've just been given the go-ahead by the decision desk, so we are now giving a projection in the Senate. We are now calling Virginia for incumbent Tim Kaine. He will hold on to his seat in the state of Virginia, and so this is nothing necessarily surprising, but is another crucial seat for the Democrats they needed to hold on to now. And as we are now approaching at 10:15 p.m. on the East Coast, we can now make another projection, and Martin Heinrich, the incumbent, will hold on to his seat in the state of New Mexico. So we can call New Mexico for Heinrich here. The state of Florida is a very fast counting state, yet right now on the Senate level, it is still too close to call. However, Donald Trump has pulled quite a bit ahead in the overall count presidentially. And speaking of Florida, we have just been given the okay to call the state of Florida for Donald Trump, 30 electoral votes. He is going to have a very strong lead this cycle here in the state of Florida. So that's very good news for his campaign, of course, as he absolutely needed that state. And if he lost that, it would have been all downhill from there. And in a similar sense, this is a very crucial state. So 10 electoral votes from the state of Colorado for Kamala Harris. 10 electoral votes from Colorado. Moving on next, we have the, going back to the map, we have those 2 states filled in that are both pivotal for their respective parties and their candidates, as basically losing those would have been an end game for either of them, as it would have been sweep territory. And looking back at our Senate map, we have some more races starting to fill in here as we are starting to approach the 10 p.m. poll closing time. Looking now at our map, we can see there's a projection coming in right now. It is now 9:30, and we can call the Minnesota Senate election for Amy Klobuchar. The incumbent will hold her seat in the state of Minnesota. That is another state going blue, 40-46, with the Republicans in the lead, but the Democrats are starting to catch up a bit with some of these more blue-friendly races here. And on the electoral map, Trump is in the lead, 134-112. So now we have just a few races strewn out here, still 191 electoral votes. But with the removal of Florida, the number of electoral votes outweighing has dropped significantly. And so now we can make another pretty big call here coming up. It's a state that Donald Trump has won both times, and it is again going red. We can call the state of Ohio for Donald Trump. 17 electoral votes into his column. That is going to bring him up to 151 against Vice President Harris with 112. And so we are now also conversely able to make another very important race call here for the vice president. So we are able to make a call now in the state of Virginia. Virginia, and there's 13 electoral votes will go for the Democrats for the fifth straight cycle, if I'm correct, fifth straight cycle here. Fourth or fifth, 13 electoral votes for the Democrats. So 151 to 125. The Senate races are still holding out strong. Florida, Rick Scott is starting to pull ahead, but we cannot make a call there yet. Michigan, things are looking good for the Democrats as well. Dan Osborne is not doing all that well in Nebraska, but there may still be enough time for him to pull ahead in this race as of right now. We cannot tell. And now we are able to make another projection right before the 10 p.m. poll closings. We are able to make a projection in the state of New Hampshire. It will go for Kamala Harris, 4 electoral votes for the vice president out of New Hampshire. And so now we are able to have a few projections here as we come to the 10 o'clock p.m. poll closings. They are going to close in just a few seconds here. The countdown's about to start. Here we have the polls closing in Montana, Nevada, and Utah. So now we have a projection to make. Montana will be called for Donald Trump, 4 electoral votes for the former president. And we also have Utah, 6 electoral votes for Donald Trump here out of the state of Utah. And the uncalled races, we have the state of Nevada, 6 electoral votes outstanding. As of right now, we cannot make any calls in the state of Nevada. And now for the Senate, we have a projection. Utah, John Curtis will take over Mitt Romney's seat in the state of Utah. That's Republican hold. And uncalled races, we have Montana and Nevada. Montana, the incumbent Don Tester, is being contested by Tim Sheehy. He has a relatively good chance based on some of the recent polling. And Nevada, the incumbent Jackie Rosen, is being contested by the Republican Sam Brown in the state of Nevada. So looking here at our map, we have 10 uncalled races. Some of them are starting to get relatively close here, and some of them are looking really good for the Democrats. Some of them are looking not so good. And, of course, for the presidential level, we have a projection coming in very soon here, most likely, and we can now actually officially make that projection. New Mexico, 5 electoral votes will go for Kamala Harris. We have 5 electoral votes for the vice president coming out of New Mexico. So that's a small yet important prize for the vice president at this point on her quest to 270. And we can make another projection. The former president Donald Trump will win the state of Iowa, and it's 6 electoral votes. 6 electoral votes for Donald Trump here. And so now we're moving on again. We have a calling now out of the state of Maine. We have 3 electoral votes for Kamala Harris. It'll be the statewide contest and Maine's 1st congressional district for Kamala Harris, and the 2nd congressional district will go for Donald Trump. This is the 3rd cycle where Maine will split its electoral votes for both parties. So now looking at the map, we have 168 to 137. Donald Trump is in the lead as of right now. And so now we are looking up at, we can now call some more results coming out of the Midwest. A split 4 electoral votes for Donald Trump out of the state of Nebraska, and 1 is going for Kamala Harris. That is Nebraska's 2nd congressional district. That will go blue for a 2nd cycle in a row now after narrowly going for Donald Trump in 2016. So now looking at the map, 172 to 138 for Donald Trump is favor. 143 outstanding electoral votes. And now looking at the Senate, we have 10 uncalled races at this point in time. And so it is still very tight, and it's absolutely up in the air. It could be for anyone's game, but we do now actually have a projection to make in the Senate. We can now call that Michigan will go for Alyssa Slotkin, a Democratic hold in the state of Michigan, one of the crucial states that they needed to hold on to in order to maintain hold of the Senate. If they lost Michigan, it was basically all over. We also have another Senate projection. We can call the crucial Republican trending state of Florida for incumbent Rick Scott. He will defeat Debbie McChrystal Powell here in the state of Florida. That is a Republican hold That is a big blow to Democrats' hopes of holding on to the Senate, as there's quite a few races, of course, already lost West Virginia, and Montana is looking relatively good for contestant Tim Sheehy to de-seat Jon Tester. So, looking again at our map here, it is filling in more and more as more of these races are getting called, and we can now actually make another projection, this time in the state of Wisconsin. We can call it for the incumbent Tammy Baldwin Democratic hold in the state of Wisconsin. That is going to be another important Senate seat out of the state of Wisconsin. So now, looking at the time, it is now 10:45 on the East Coast, and we are now able to make another Senate projection. They keep on coming in, and we can call the seat that is up for a contest in the state of Texas for Ted Cruz, the incumbent that is a Republican hold, and that is another huge blow to the Democrats that were hoping to hold on to their majority, as now it is 49 for the Republicans, 42 for the Democrats. It is not looking very good, as they will have to hold on to their seat in Montana, and that is not going to be an easy task. And if Republicans can defeat Dan Osborne in the state of Nebraska, then that will be a very difficult feat entirely. Now, looking at the presidential level, we can see that there's still quite a few races that are outgoing right now, and speaking of that, we can now make a large projection here. Texas being called for Donald Trump, 40 electoral votes into his column at this time, which does bring his total all the way up above 200 to 212 electoral votes. That is going to be a crucial race here for the former president. So now we have, we're coming up on the 11 p.m. poll closings here on the East Coast, 11 o'clock p.m., and now we are able to make our projections coming up right up here. 1 second left, and the polls have now closed. Projections here: California, we called for Kamala Harris, 54 crucial electoral votes into her column. Idaho will be called for Donald Trump, 4 electoral votes from the state of Idaho for the former president, 8 electoral votes out of Oregon for Kamala Harris, and there will also be 12 electoral votes from Washington for Kamala Harris as well. There are no uncalled races from this poll closing. And now, looking at the Senate projections, we can make a projection that Adam Schiff will win the Senate seat in California. That is a Democratic hold. That is when they absolutely need it. And the incumbent Maria Cantwell will hold on to her seat in the state of Washington, another one that the Democrats absolutely needed to hold on to in order to have any hope of holding on to the Senate whatsoever. So, looking now at our map, we can see that basically every single race now is filled in except for Hawaii, and then our competitive races. And of course, on the presidency, we have the 7 major swing states plus Minnesota are still outgoing, and we are expecting to be able to call Minnesota relatively soon. So looking here at our Senate map, we have quite a few races that are, again, still outgoing as of right now, and we do actually have a projection to be able to make right now. We are able to call the state of Pennsylvania for the incumbent Bob Casey. So that's going to be a Democratic hold for the incumbent Bob Casey. Another crucial Senate seat that the Democrats could not afford to lose whatsoever, that they will be able to hold on to. That brings their total up to 45. However, they still have to win all 5 of these other seats. And technically, they can't win in Nebraska. They do not have a contestant there. That is the incumbent. That is the independent Dan Osborne, and he said that he will not caucus with either party if he is elected. And he has thrown shade on both sides during his campaign, hoping to able to win in deep red Nebraska, which has basically gone for Donald Trump. By right now, he is ahead by 14 points and will expand most likely even more as the night goes on. And now we do have a projection to make in the state of Minnesota. Will be called for Kamala Harris, 10 electoral votes for the vice president, and she has now taken the lead in the electoral count, 222 to 216, and we now just have these 7 main swing states outgoing as of right now. We do not have any more calls to make, and we just have the midnight poll closings, which is just the state of Hawaii. We can make a projection, though, that Hawaii will in fact go for Kamala Harris this again, to basically nobody's surprise. And for the Senate projection, we can project that Mazie Hirono will hold on to her seat in the state of Hawaii, which is our last Senate race that we have been waiting on. And so now the Senate race is completely filled in, except for these five last competitive races. And so now we also have another projection to make in the Senate. So we can now call the Senate race here another crucial one they needed to hold on to. Ruben Gallego will win the seat in Arizona. Arizona will go blue on the senatorial level. Again, it will be a hold for the Democrats. And similarly, we are also actually able to make a projection, surprisingly, out of the crucial presidential battleground of Nevada. Jackie Rosen, the incumbent, will hold on to her seat in the state of Nevada. That is going to be a crucial one, and now we are at 49-48 for Republicans in the lead. We are waiting on Ohio, Nebraska, and Montana. Those are our closest ones, and we still have the 7 main swing states in the presidential battlegrounds. So now we are coming up on the 1 a.m. poll closings, and we still do not have any results out of any of those 7. We are now waiting for the polls to close now in Alaska. Polls close in Alaska. We have uncalled races. Alaska's 3 electoral votes are up for grabs as of right now. Most likely Donald Trump will, in fact, win them, but we will have to wait a little while for them to be called. It is now 1:30 a.m. on the East Coast, and we, in fact, do have a projection Donald Trump will win the state of Alaska and its 3 electoral votes. And so now we can actually make our first huge projection. This is a big way to be able to tell how the rest of the night will go, essentially, at this point. We can now make a projection in the pivotal swing state of Georgia. 16 electoral votes will go back into the Republican column for Donald Trump, bringing him into the lead ahead of Kamala Harris, 235-226. So this is a pivotal election result right here that the Republicans were absolutely waiting for, and they needed to hear. So this is a great news for them. We can make a Senate projection. Deb Fischer will hold on to her seat in the state of Nebraska, which brings the Republicans up to 50 Senate seats. So that is not what the Democrats wanted to hear. It is not a blue wave this year. This is just it appears that the Democrats are performing a bit above where they were expected, especially on the presidential level, but the Senate level, they're absolutely basically going on polling as far as their performance goes at this time. We're still waiting on Montana, which is starting to look worse and worse for the incumbent. Looks like we're going to probably be able to call it relatively soon. And, of course, in Ohio, that's going to be waiting for a long time here. Now we're coming in at about 2:30 a.m. on the East Coast, and we are now finally able to make this big projection for Kamala Harris. This is good news for her. Montana actually coming in first. For Tim Sheehy, he is a Republican flip, which means that Republicans will take control of the Senate in the next election cycle. So that is huge. It doesn't matter who wins the presidency. Republicans will hold on to the Senate. But now we do have a crucial projection for the Democrats. Michigan will go for Kamala Harris. 15 electoral votes for the vice president in Michigan. That is absolutely necessary. That means that she is still in the game, and it is not over for her. So there will not be a swing state sweep by either candidate this election, as it does appear. However, we do have more bad news for Kamala Harris and more great news for Donald Trump coming up right now. We can make a projection that Donald Trump has won the state of North Carolina for the 3rd cycle, the 3rd time it has narrowly voted for Donald Trump. Looks like this one's going to be even closer than 2020 for his margin there, but we do have some projection to make there, and now it is about 5:30 in the morning on Wednesday, and we are finally now able to make our final projection in the Ohio Senate. So we can make a projection now that Sherrod Brown, the incumbent, will narrowly hold on to his seat in the state of Ohio for one more cycle. We expect that he will not be able to make it work in 2028, but we have a finished Senate map now. 51 seats for the Republicans, 49 for the Democrats, and we are awaiting 4 more states in the presidential race, and we are now able to actually make a projection in that presidential race. It is now 5 in the morning, And we are calling Wisconsin for Kamala Harris, 10 electoral votes. This is absolutely integral. She may be able to get that coveted blue wall hold here. She just needs to win Pennsylvania, which is coming down very, very strong for her at the very, very end. She's getting the drops that she needs out of the urban regions. We're just waiting for a few more drops out of the city of Philadelphia in her favor. It's looking like she's going to win it by a bit less than than Joe Biden did in 2020, closer to a flat percentage point. But it will look like it's coming in for her. It is now 10 a.m. on Wednesday, and we can now make a projection that Kamala Harris has won the election for President of the United States, as she has won the pivotal swing state of Pennsylvania, 19 electoral votes, which brings her up to the magical 270 mark ahead of Donald Trump, which means that he will lose the presidential election. Kamala Harris will win the presidency. And so now it is now about 9 p.m. on Wednesday, and we are able to make a projection now that Donald Trump will win the state of Arizona, and it's 11 electoral votes. This is a very, very close race, so it took a very long time to tabulate those last few votes from the Phoenix area, but they were not able to overcompensate the stronger votes around the Phoenix region. It appears that Phoenix has actually voted a bit bluer than it did in 2020, but it has not been enough to overcome the more Republican sentiment around the rest of the state. And now we are just waiting on Nevada, which could take multiple days. So now we are looking at finally some last few results. It is 8 a.m. on Friday, so we are now making a projection. Nevada will go for Kamala Harris by the narrowest of margins. We're looking at about half a point to a point here. And we are now finished with our maps here. 276 electoral votes to 262 for Kamala Harris. And look at the Senate, 51 seats for Republicans and 49 for the Democrats. So thank you all so much for watching, everyone. And I do hope that you all have a fabulous rest of your day. So, I mean, this is what we're down to. It's super close. If you have not voted already, make sure to vote, please. It really does mean a lot for everyone. So do make sure to go out and to vote. And everyone, make sure to see the live stream later tonight. And have a fabulous rest of your day.